about a straw dog. Gan woke that morning to the smell of almonds. His wife was baking a cake. Gan was suspicious. Mei Yin, his wife, never baked cakes. Tomorrow is the Harvest Moon Festival, she purred. I want to make an offering of thanks to our good neighbours, Wu and his family. This was for Wu. That was for Wu. Nothing was ever for me, Gan thought. Do what you like. You normally do, he railed and slammed the door. Gan lived in the gatehouse of a cemetery where he worked. Wu lived in the one opposite. But Wu had cuckolded him. Not surprisingly, their relations had reached a nadir. Gan found Wu in the cemetery copse. Give me your knife, Wu demanded. Gan fingered the blade. The dog's head was always taking things that belonged to him, including his wife. You want my knife? What for? He snarled. Wu replied, what do you think? We maintain the temple gardens and graveyard. For that, we need kindling. Gan caressed the smooth wooden handle of the knife and handed it to him point first. Wu growled the thanks and proceeded to cut down some branches. Gan fetched his spade and finished digging out the grave for the morning's burial. All that was missing was a coffin and a corpse. Wu's would fit perfectly. A procession arrived with a man carrying a large placard at its head. Gan couldn't read, but he had a good idea what it said. Here lies the body of Yu Qi, executed for murdering his lover in a jealous rage. The whole town, even the gulls and the crows, knew about Yu Qi. The musicians followed, their clashing cymbals and beating drums, waking the dead and scaring the crows. Behind them came the high priest and the Dao monks, dressed in red, green and yellow silk robes and wafting thick clouds of sweet-smelling incense. At least it killed the pong of soggy charcoal and decomposing autumn leaves. Behind them, 4 burly men carried an open palanquin, porting a large embroidered basket. Along came the mourners in customary white robes, followed by a donkey cart on which lay a rudimentary coffin. Earlier that morning, the executioner had separated Yu Qi's head from his body. Both were at that time rattling around inside the coffin. The procession drew up around the open grave. The high priest whisked off the top of the basket, revealing a dog, a Shar-Pei, with curly tail, thick neck and distinctive wrinkly skin. It wasn't a real one, no. It was a replica made of packed yellow straw, held together by sticky rice. In his short time working for the monks, Gan had never come across a straw dog until now. The mourners were crying hot tears of grief. Their heads hung low, the women comforting one another. As the monks lowered the coffin into the grave, a woman deposited a large blob of spittle onto the lid. That nestled neatly alongside a bunch of yellowing leaves. The other mourners chucked stones and lobbed clods of earth at it, while the men hurled some choice curses. As if that wasn't strange enough, the high priest did nothing to prevent them, but instead nodded approvingly. With the coffin settled into the base of the grave, he and Wu grabbed their spades and got to work. After every shovelful, he glowered at Wu. These were the worst days of Gan's life. The spittle woman stared at him and turned away, hiding a snigger behind her hand. He flushed with embarrassment. There was no escape. Everyone knew he was a cuckold. His life was getting slowly buried by Wu. By the time they filled the grave, every muscle in his body was tense with rage. He threatened to plunge the spade into Wu's head, but at the last moment, Gan pulled out of the attack and instead smashed it into the grave mound. He may be a cuckold, but he wasn't foolish enough to kill a man in public. Anyway, why should he be culpable? There had to be a way to dispose of his cheating wife and her lover without incriminating himself. The mourners headed straight for the straw dog, which had mysteriously changed colour. Now it was a brownish yellow, colour of dark urine. The straw dog was one thing, but a straw dog that stank of piss was quite another. The spittle woman landed a huge kick on the straw dog, toppling it over. Lancing obscenities into the air, the rest of the mourners trampled on its head, throat and hindquarters. The poor creature was shredded under their macabre dance. The mob pummeled the remaining lumps until the original Shar-Pei form was strewn over the earth in 1,001 strands of straw. The high priest glowed with satisfaction. This was all new to Gan, so the high priest explained. Yu Qi slaughtered his lover in a fit of jealousy. These mourners are not his family, they're her family. The ceremony cleanses them of their desire for revenge. All their evil thoughts and emotions are drawn into the straw dog. The straw absorbs the poisonous qi, and the process turned it brown. Gan shook his head. He never heard of this before. Mind, he hadn't witnessed the burial of an executed murderer. The high priest told him what to do next. Burn every last piece of straw. That disposes of the negative qi. Otherwise, there'll be clouds of the stuff floating around Fujian province, and it'll induce someone else to butcher his or her lover. Sweep up every last strand, especially that one stuck to the heel of your sandal. That gave him an idea. Gan nipped behind a tree where he plucked the strand from his sandal, enclosing it in his kerchief, placed it in his inner pocket. This was a potent weapon imbued with sexual jealousy. Whoever came into contact with it would be infused with a murderous rage. After everyone had left, Gan raked up all the straw and delighted in the bonfire's cleansing flames. Arriving home, his wife's maid was heading across to Wu's house to deliver the cake. Precious, he said to her, that was her name. Let me take it to them. Everything was falling sweetly into place. Stepping out of sight, Gan retrieved his kerchief and carefully sprinkled the strand of straw onto the cake. A delicious topping. When he knocked on the door, Wu wasn't at home. He'd gone to help with the tea harvest. The maid asked him in anyway. Wu's dog, also a Shar-Pei, caught the sweet scent of the cake and salivated all over him. He gave the cake to Wu's wife, and they even shared a drink of tea. That night, he and Mei Ying slept in different bedrooms. What with the full moon, Gan tossed and turned in his bed. When he did fall asleep, his fevered mind plagued him with violent images. He was knifing Mei Ying. Her blood flowed freely, turning the seas incarnadine. A flock of black and white gulls swooped just above his head as the tentacles of a tame dawn light reached through the lattice. He was awoken by their cawing, "Cuckold! Cuckold!" They goaded him. Even the gulls were mocking him. No, he wasn't having that. This was his day of redemption. From today, a new future beckoned. He heard a chilling scream that roamed around the house like an errant spirit. He rushed to his wife's bedroom. Precious stood by her mistress' bedside, rocking back and forth, wails of grief rising to the gods. They weren't listening that morning. Mei Ying's body lay spread-eagled on the bed, her hands above her head in a gesture of surrender, blood oozing from a deep wound above her head, the knife handle protruding from between her thighs. He smirked. What did he care? The deed was done, and not by him. There was a thumping at the front door. He thrust it open. "Wu?" Gan blurted out. "You're the last person I expected to see. Why? What's happened? I heard a scream." "Don't make out you're innocent," Gan snarled. "It was you. You killed her." "Killed who?" Wu asked. "Mei Ying." "Your wife? She's dead? What have you done to her?" Wu asked, shoving him out of the way and rushing to the bedroom. "Me? Nothing. You murdered her, he taunted Wu. I took a strand from the straw dog, sprinkled it on the cake I gave your wife. During the night, you had a fit of jealousy, sneaked in here and butchered your lover. Lover? Me? I never touched Mei Ying. You're mad. Besides, I never ate the cake. Never ate the cake? Gang repeated. No. When my wife's back was turned, a Sharpei scoffed the lot. Gan felt like someone had hit him in the belly with a battering ram. So what? You could have still butchered her, he said, clutching at straws. Wu shook his head with unnerving certainty and said, isn't that your wooden-handled knife between her legs? And oh, what's that piece of brownish straw snagged behind the back of your hair? The end. Thank you very much.
My name is